audio clear? Just
Sorry.
any of our, I just don't want to lose any of the audio due to internet issues. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And yeah, we're just going to hop on in. So good morning, everyone. It's still morning, so I can say that. Thanks for joining us for this special event where we joined up with the financial advisors from One Day in July. My name is Jane Stromberg. I am the outreach coordinator for Green Mountain Solar. I'm also joined here by our president, Paul Lesure. You'll hear from him in a little bit. We are honestly just so thrilled to be here doing this event this morning because going solar is honestly not a small decision, and having a deep understanding of what to expect financially and how to go about setting yourself up for that real success is going to be key in that experience of going solar. Just to let you know, if you do have any questions along the way, that's awesome, that's wonderful. That's why we're here. We will be addressing any and all of the questions at the end of the joint presentation. So without further ado, I'm just going to hop right on in. So who are we? Well, we'll discuss who we are, how solar works, the value of solar, the federal investment tax credit, home value resale, and kind of all the discussion around that. And then obviously there's a big reason we're here, right? Planning for the future on the financial side of things. So that's what we'll be talking about. And then just kind of hopping right on into who we are. So what is Green Mountain Solar? Who makes up this group of people? We are a local owner-operated solar company out of South Burlington. We install for Vermonters within a 2-hour radius of our office, which is a pretty sizable chunk of the state. We certainly pride ourselves in our customer care and follow-up, and this includes making sure that our customers have all of the financial information and solar information, technology information to make an informed decision. At Green Mountain Solar, we believe that solar should be accessible and affordable, and we put in our all to make that a reality for folks as much as we can. We offer trusted industry-leading products in all that we install to ensure systems will have that resilience and longevity needed. So that's something that we firmly believe in and offer as strongly as possible. And we're happy to answer any questions about ourselves at the end as well. So how does solar even work? What is this magic? We install PV, solar photovoltaic panels. And so it's important to understand like how it works and you know, what you're kind of going to really get out of it. So basically, when the sun's rays hit the panels, photons hitting the solar cells, it causes the electrons to vibrate and produce direct current electricity. Great, we have electricity. So now what? Well, we can use that direct current, or we can't use that direct current in our house and our appliances. So that's a different type of electricity. So we need alternating current, AC, so DC to AC. In that change, we do need that translator, and that translator, we call them inverters. So solar panels are really cool and all, but the inverter is actually doing a lot of the work. So once we kind of get our electricity translated, it goes to the meter. And once it goes to the meter, it has a decision to make. It can be used where it is needed at your home or your business right away. And any excess electricity produced can be sent back to the grid. So when the sun isn't shining, or when we have one of those heavy snowstorms that are that we're very familiar with here in Vermont, you can call on that electricity and those credits to be used to meet your energy demand during those times. This is something called net metering. It's very popular here in Vermont. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Paul Lesure to start talking about the value of solar.
Thanks, Jane. So as probably many of you know, a lot of folks are going solar these days. We see a few main reasons for that. One, going green, reduce your carbon footprint, offset your impact on the planet, which is awesome. We also see people looking for more energy independence. That idea that they can separate themselves from the grid, not be so relying on the utility. But the third is the value of solar, or kind of the monetary credits for it. Which is also a great reason to go solar. We invest our money in our homes and everything else with all sorts of other ways. So this is actually one where you get the trifecta of going green, having some energy independence, and also having a return on your investment typically. So how solar works, as Jane had mentioned, is through net metering, which is an electric bill offset. So as she said, when your panels are producing power, we're designing that system to offset as much of your electric bill as possible, so that on the sunny days, you're spinning your meter backwards, building up credits. So at night, the shorter days, things like that, you're going to have extra credits on your bill to offset that. The goal over the course of the year is to make the investment in your solar system offset the entire kilowatt hour charges of your electric bill, so that you basically are, instead of paying the utility company or renting your electric, you now own your electric. Most people are going to be paying off their solar loan in 12 years or so with the structures we offer through VSCCU. And the panels we typically use and other things are guaranteed for 25 years. And so you have a really great long-term investment in your home. Other big things besides net metering this make this work is a federal investment tax credit. As always, you should talk to your accountant to see how this applies to you. But if you do have the income liability or appetite, you can get a 26% tax credit off the top of your solar array. So basically, for every $10,000 you would spend on that solar array, that's $2,600 basically coming back to you, right off the top of that cost on your next tax filing. Again, talk to your accountant, make sure that works, but it's a really good incentive to help reduce the cost of the solar and improve your investment. Again, with all this, what we're doing is over time taking that value of your electric bill and converting it over to an investment in your home. And this can benefit new homes as well as old homes. As a company, we look to work with builders often to design a system to meet the potential demands of it. But I live in an 1840s farmhouse, so I was able to convert my old farmhouse from a drafty old oil sucking machine into something that now I actually, with heat pumps, am able to heat and cool and pay off my entire electric bill plus my electric car with the solar I invested. So we can really adapt this to anyone's home to hopefully offer a solid value. So as I said, the main structure for solar is net metering in Vermont. Again, to just rehash this, net metering is the process of being able to net out the electricity production. The biggest thing here is that we're able to do that over the course of an entire year. So in Vermont, you get one rolling year from the time you produce your credits to when you're able to use them. In practicality in Vermont, that's largely April to April, because that's when the kind of warm, sunny days start to outpace our electric use of the cold winter months. So what you'll do is you're going to, starting again in April, some years maybe May, depending on how much snow we might get, you're going to spin your meter backwards with the excess production. You're going to rack up those credits, and all summer long, you're going to actually start to see basically a negative balance on your bill. In Vermont, you still do have what are called non-bypassable charges. That's your base customer charge. There's an energy efficiency charge, things like that, which will most people leave you around a $20 a month bill, depending on your utility. But the bulk of your charges, which is your kilowatt hour usage, are offset by that solar. So we're racking up those credits, spinning our meter backwards. You're kind of banking them as if the grid was our battery. And then all winter long, or on night times, things like that, as you pull power back from the grid, you're able to use those credits. The real value of net metering is that we're, again, able to take those bright sunny days in summer and store them up for the winter time. And so we can design a system that offsets that whole year And it's really efficient versus if we had to design a system that, you know, really just had to work in the worst cases of winter, where you'd almost have to double or triple your system to make it work. And obviously that would have a major cost effect. Right now with net metering in Vermont, you actually get close to the same retail rate as you do also with what you're paying the utility. So right now, GMP just got a rate bump. It's 17.6 cents, but you're going to get actually around 15.4 for most people. So we're able to really closely come 1-to-1 for that electric bill and get you a good solid system to offset your bills. So as I mentioned, the other big thing is the tax credits from the federal government. The big one that applies to both individuals or kind of residential tax credits, as well as commercial entities or businesses, is the federal investment tax credit. Currently, that's a 26% tax credit. That is this year as well as next year. Following that, we do anticipate a step down to 22% at the moment. But that tax credit is for people who have the tax liability, something straight off the top of the system, basically, that you'll recoup on your following year's tax filings. So as I said before, for every $10,000 you spend, that's $2,600, or a little over 25% of the system that you get straight back on your taxes. And that applies to both systems for, again, residential, commercial. We are also for businesses have additional state tax credits as well as depreciation. So for those of you who may run a business who might consider solar, you should definitely ask us about those. The wonderful thing about that income tax credit is a lot of places also offer great financing solutions for that. So as I said, you get that back on your next year's tax credits, but our partners at VSCCU have loan mechanisms to help float that amount for the time it takes you to recoup it, so you don't have to pay it out of pocket and then get it back. They can help with that. So as we talked about, solar has a payback. So this is a illustration of how it works in certain circumstances. But what solar does is it's offsetting your utility bill, as I said, through net metering. So with solar, we are providing the power that you would otherwise buy from the utility. So upfront, solar has a cash investment. As you can see in this instance, post ITC, this is a little over a $20,000 system. Day one, obviously the utility is better. You're not paying anything. But over time, what happens is you are taking, again, that expense of the utility, which consistently goes downhill, and you're replacing that with an investment in the solar and an investment in your home. So over time, you're producing the electricity you would otherwise pay to the utility, and that's where you see that green line curving upwards. So over, in Vermont, 11, 12, 13-year period, this really depends on your site specifically, your electric bills and other factors, but you will basically have earned the amount of that total solar system back after the tax credits, and you are kind of cash flow positive, if you will. Whereas the utility, kind of like renting, you're never really recouping that money. You're just always sending it over to them. And over time, you're going to spend a lot. So in this particular illustration, over the 25-year warranty life of the systems, you're spending just shy of $60,000 to the utility. Whereas, again, under this illustration, you would come out $30,000 ahead of what you spent on your total system up front. Can't say it enough. This is just an illustration. There are tax benefits that may or may not apply. So something to bring to your accountant, but these are things we talk to about homeowners so they can have those good conversations with their professionals. Another big thing is the increased resale value of your home. So I think this one, I hate to use the term no-brainer, but makes sense for a lot of people. Solar is an investment. It's an investment in the system, but an investment in your home. So when you go solar, we're trying to offset your electricity bill. through various studies from Zillow and Berkeley Labs and a bunch of these other national organizations, they have done the detailed homework to determine that homes with solar sell for about 4.1% more. Doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you're talking a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 home, those numbers really add up. And the really thing about that is, when you're looking at it, if you have two homes that are apples to apples, but one has a solar system, so no electric bill, you're not spending a couple $100 a month on the utility, or one that, has an electric bill, there's a positive value to no electric bill. You're going to be, again, not sending your money to the electric bill each month, so you can invest that in other things. So you might pay a little more for it up front. Same thing with, the other energy efficiency technologies like heat pumps or other things. You're reducing the cost of that potential home. And so people find that more appetizing. So how we do it, every home is different. Even when we go into the, let's call them cookie cutter suburban homes, what I may use versus my neighbors versus their neighbors, it's all different because it's personal use. So we come out to a house and we're going to really assess that. We're going to look at your electric bill. We're going to look at what you have for the infrastructure of your home. We're going to talk about what might be changing. Hey, you have a gas furnace. Let's talk about heat pumps, because that's a great way to offset your oil or your gas bill with electric, and then you can pay for it with your solar. Are you about to have a kid? If you have kids, you know that kids generate laundry. Laundry adds up on your electric bill. Or if you have a kid going off to college where you're not going to be paying for a half-hour shower every morning. These things are all things we want to take into account and help accommodate for, so that we're designing the best system for you. And then obviously we look at your resources. Is a rooftop great? Ground mount great? Is a carport the best solution for you? We'll even talk about battery backup. Batteries don't offer the same financial incentive that solar does. In Vermont, you have no return on investment, but what it does offer you is peace of mind. One thing people have a misconception with is that if the grid goes down, your solar goes and keeps your power on. Not without the battery, just for safety reasons. Without that battery, you could be accidentally backfeeding power to the grid, and none of us want to zap a lineman who's trying to get us reconnected.
Very good points, Paul. Thank you very much for that. So just kind of to wrap everything up, because there's a lot of thoughts there, right? So there are many factors to take into consideration when thinking about solar and if it's the right choice for your home or business. So it is very important to think about your current energy usage, absolutely. But it's also very important to think about your projected energy usage, as Paul has alluded to. So if you're thinking about getting that hot tub that you always wanted, especially right in Vermont winters, that's super nice. I'm excited for you. But that's going to definitely raise that electric bill. So that's something to think about. Larger usages in general like that, or heat pumps, or a lot of these other kind of efficiency increasing items for your home. A lot of them are going to run off electricity because it is efficient, especially if you have solar. But again, it's those things where you want to have your solar system sized appropriately for those usages. So that budget is really important to think about. And like I said before, we do want solar to be accessible and affordable for Vermonters. So as Paul mentioned, we do offer that financing loan options through our local lender, VSECU. That's the Vermont State Employee Credit Union. And then just kind of thinking about the benefit, one of the many benefits of solar and paying monthly for, is if you do the financing route, you are kind of stabilizing that electric bill. So typically there's seasonal electric bill fluctuations and rate hikes. And that's something that you just wouldn't have to worry about if you went solar. So that's a giant check mark for reliable consistency. And then obviously you'll have free electricity once that whole loan is paid off. So that's awesome. I feel like that's always a good thing to kind of meet. And then we also understand that everyone's situation is different and folks have energy needs unique to their home or business. So that is why it's good to consult with financial planning experts like the folks we have here today from One Day in July. So with that, I actually will just pass it over to Katie and we will start kind of delving into that aspect.
Perfect. Thank you, and Jane and Paul for that awesome presentation. I'm just going to share my screen real quick so that we can get to our part of the presentation. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that all right. Awesome. Okay. So thank you for that introduction, Jane. Much like what Jane kind of talked through, I also wanted to just give you a sense of what I'm about to talk about. Like she said, we are financial advisors and we do help with financial planning as well. So that's kind of the main reason why One Day in July and Green Mountain Solar, we decided to partner in this presentation because we do feel like our values really do align. We want to help you not only invest your money in a way that fits with your values, but also help whatever other large purchases or large investments you want to make. We want to make sure that they work best for you and that they're feasible and manageable for you. So today I'm going to go through a little bit about who we are. Then I'm going to go through just kind of briefly talk about what is environmental investing, what metrics we use when designing our environmental model, and then the impact of environmental investing in general. So we are financial advisors. So I do have to just briefly mention our disclosure. We are SEC registered, and thank you. So what is a financial advisor? Who is One Day in July? So my name is Katie Bensel. I'm one of the investment advisors here out of our main Burlington office. I have been working with One Day in July for the past few years, and we have developed now an environmental investing model. In general, we are focused on providing investors with a low fee index fund investment plan and investment model. What that means, index funds are these low fee products that are able to invest you in a highly diversified manner for a very low cost. So our priority is keeping your profits in your hands and in your pockets and not allowing any high fee funds or high fee products to suck out those returns. And that being said, we were able to utilize these low fee index funds and find an environmental solution that helped us meet both needs. That being said, we are also 100% fiduciaries on all accounts. I like to mention this because it is in the public ear more and more, this term fiduciary and what it means. It means that we have a legal and ethical responsibility to do what is in your best interest. The only person that pays us is you. We do not use any funds that earn us commissions or any sales loads or products that earn us money on top of what you pay us. That allows us to be sure that what we're doing for you is in your best interest. Also, one of the things that I believe that really aligns us well with Green Mountain Solar is that we are also very customer service oriented. So we are local to Vermont. We have 2 offices in Vermont, one in Burlington and one in Shelburne. We are growing and we can help people all across the country, but our focus is really providing that local, strong customer service. You have your advisor's cell phone number, you have their direct email. We are not a call center and we never intend to be. So we really want to give you that one-on-one attention and that knowledge that the person that you're meeting with and the person that's helping you figure out your financial future knows who you are and what you care about most. So to give you a little bit about what is environmental investing. So environmental investing is a values-based investing model. So a lot of people have probably heard of ESG investing or environmental, social, and governance. So at One Day in July, we did decide to focus and hone in on the environmental factor. We wanted to make sure that instead of trying to do all of the things somewhat well, we wanted to focus on one topic and do it very well. And that topic is environmental. So the real point of investing in an environmental model is to invest with the goal of making an impact on the world. our approach really aligns investment portfolios with investors who harbor a significant concern about climate change, which if you're considering going solar and you most likely do care about the planet, yes, as Paul and Jane said, it does have a lot of financial benefits to it as well, but most likely you do care about the planet, which we do as well. And we wanted to make sure that we provided a solution for Vermonters to put their funds in companies who are trying to make a positive impact. So to go into a little bit about, in terms of One Day in July's investment model, how did we get there? So a lot of people have heard of ESG funds or ESG investment funds or index funds, and it's a lot of information and there's a lot of metrics that go into each individual fund. So like I said before, we really wanted to take a focused approach and we wanted to take a qualitative approach because we wanted to take that focus and do it the best we could. So what we did was we took two main metrics that we decided to focus in on, and we used those metrics to filter out and filter into specific funds that reduce these two metrics the most, which we believe will have a significant impact on things like climate change. So to go into a little bit more detail, our two metrics are carbon intensity as well as fossil fuel reserves. So I won't go into extreme detail, but carbon intensity is, by definition, the amount in tons of carbon of CO2, so carbon dioxide emissions, within the context of economic activity. So for a country, this is the tons of emissions per millions of dollars of GDP or gross domestic product. And for a specific company, this is the tons of carbon dioxide emissions per $1 million of sales. So why did we choose carbon emissions? There are a whole slew of greenhouse gases, and we can all agree that greenhouse gases are having an impact on the environment. The reason why we chose carbon dioxide and CO2 intensity is because CO2 is the most prevalent of the greenhouse gases. It accounts for just approximately 76% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. So we really focused in on this metric and utilized it as a filter to try to reduce the amount of carbon emissions throughout our model and throughout the companies that represent our model. On the other metric, it's the fossil fuel reserves. So if you're familiar with fossil fuels, they are non-renewable energy sources formed over hundreds of millions of years as prehistoric animals and plants decay under a layer of sand, clay, and rock. Lovely definition that I'm sure most of you are very familiar with. So these are things like coal, oil, and natural gas. And the reserve part of it is areas where the existence of those fossil fuels is proven, probable, or possible, and the extraction is economically feasible and physically possible. So that being said, if you can imagine, years and years ago, there might have been certain reserves that we couldn't technically utilize because it would be too expensive to get to them, or we didn't have the technology necessary to get to it. Our technology has significantly increased in the past, as you know, so it's becoming more and more probable and possible to extract these fossil fuels. However, the extraction of them and the burning of them is having a significant impact on our climate and on climate change. So we really wanted to design a model with the metric of reducing the amount of fossil fuel reserve exposure you have throughout the model. So our goal in an ideal world would be to have no exposure to companies with fossil fuel reserves, but ideally we are at least trying to significantly reduce it in comparison to any of our standard models and reduce it as much as possible. So what is the impact of environmental investing and kind of the whole reason behind environmental investing? So to give you a little bit of background, in the past year, so in 2020, ESG funds, which are the environmental, social, and governance, not just environmental funds, have captured $51.1 billion of net new money from investors. That is more than double the prior year, according to Morningstar. So clearly, individuals are trying to put their money in things that they care about. They're trying to have that impact. So at One Day in July, with our environmental investing model, as I've said many times at this point, we are focused. We're focused on that environmental impact and on making sure that we do that one criteria well, rather than trying to focus on all of the things for all of the people and not doing them as well as we could. We're trying to solve primarily for those two metrics. Those are our top two metrics, and they're the ones that we focus on primarily when designing our model. And that's why we really do believe in keeping it simple. Simplicity is key, and it really helps make sure that you have a diversified model that's actually hitting the criteria you want it to. So we do simplify it down to the carbon emissions and the fossil fuel reserves criteria. What is probably one of the most important things for environmental investors is that alignment. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to align your funds, your investments, your money, and you're trying to align those with your values. And that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that we are helping you have a sustainable financial future in a way that aligns with who you are and what you ethically and morally want to help grow in the world, what companies you want to support. And then finally, influence. So obviously, where you spend your money and what you spend your money on a day-to-day basis has an impact and has an influence. And we believe that for the right amount, like if enough people do invest in environmental funds and work towards environmental investing, once you have a significant asset level that's going into that as a whole, as a country, as a world, that is going to influence which companies have the support of everyone and which companies are going to do well for the long run and are going to have the biggest influence on the future of our planet. So we really do want to focus on having that positive impact on the future and on climate and climate change. And to wrap things up, that was just a brief explanation of, environmental investing. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, but also obviously happy to answer more detailed questions one-on-one. And I wanted to just end with the resources for you. So our contact information for Green Mountain Solar, as well as One Day in July. You'll find a plethora of helpful information on our websites and through Green Mountain Solar's blog. And then if you would also at any point like to give us a call or send us an email, those are also on here as well. So I think at this time, we would like to start questions. We can.
Katie, there's a question in the chat for you from Sarah about how, more specifically, how investing her money can help those good companies pull out ahead.
Yeah, of course. So great question. The primary idea behind that is, in order for a company to continue growing, it needs funds. Most companies do need assets in order to strive and survive and flourish. And the investors are a big part of that. So when a company goes public and investors can start putting their money towards that company, the more money and the more assets they have behind them, the more capital they have behind them, the more they can do and the more they can change in the world. So with those assets, they can grow their company, they can expand. Maybe a smaller company that's more regionally based can become a national or a global company because of the support of those individuals and their funds. That being said, pulling your assets from companies that you don't believe in can also have a similar type of effect, just in the opposite way. So when you're moving your money towards these environmentally focused companies, those companies are getting those assets to be able to boost what they're doing, and you're pulling those assets from the companies that are potentially having a harmful impact on the environment. And as they lose the support of their investors, they're not going to be able to sustain themselves long term if that happens in a large enough wave. Obviously, like, there's potentially still people who are investing in funds and investing in companies that are not positively impacting the environment. But even a small shift over time, it'll get bigger and bigger. And the bigger that impact, the more those companies who really care are going to start coming up and flourishing. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Looks like oh, perfect. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. It looks like we also have a question or a couple questions for, okay, looks like Paul, you answered that question. Okay, read through these. Does anybody else have any questions? Awesome. Well, okay. Yes. Awesome. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Green Mountain Solar, and Paul and Jane for joining us, and everyone for attending and asking such amazing questions. We really appreciate your participation. And we have recorded this. So if you would like a recording, please just let us know. And we can also follow up via email with our contact information so that you have it easy access if you have any additional questions, as long as that's okay.
Thanks so much, Katie. That's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And thanks again.
Bye, everybody.